We have spent this entire series chronicling the death of the knight. We've watched his armor become obsolete, his tactics fail, his economy collapse, and his ideals turn to dust. But we have forgotten one crucial question. What about the generation that was next in line? What happened to the thousands of young squires who spent their entire lives training for a dream that vanished just as they were about to reach it? This is their story. It is the story of the forgotten generation, the men who were promised a sword, but were handed a world with no use for it. Part 1. The Promise, the Life of a Squire. To become a knight was a long, arduous journey. It began as a page, and then in the crucial teenage years, a young nobleman became a squire. The life of a squire was one of relentless, all-consuming training. His days were filled with grueling physical conditioning. He learned to ride a warhorse, to wield a sword, a lance, and a mace. He would spend hours practicing in the tilt yard, his body covered in bruises. But his training was not just martial. He was also his knight's personal attendant. He cleaned his master's armor, cared for his horses, served him at the dinner table, and even slept at the foot of his bed as a bodyguard. He endured all of this for one single shining promise that one day, after proving his worth through courage and loyal service, he too would kneel and be dubbed a knight. His entire identity, his every sacrifice, was aimed at that singular moment. It was the defining purpose of his young life. Part 2. The world changes the vanishing goal. As the 15th and 16th centuries progressed, the world changed with astonishing speed. The rise of professional armies, the dominance of gunpowder, and the crippling costs of the knightly lifestyle meant that fewer and fewer new knights were being created. A great lord who once might have had 20 knights in his retinue now found it more effective to have 5 and spend the rest of his money on a company of mercenary pikemen. The number of available jobs for a knight was plummeting. Imagine being a squire in this era. You are in your late teens at the peak of your training. You have spent a decade of your life in grueling service. You have done everything right, but you start to hear the whispers. You see fewer knighting ceremonies. You see your own master struggling with debts. You see the king hiring foreign mercenaries instead of relying on men like him. The promise that has fueled your entire existence begins to look fragile, uncertain. Part 3. The Crossroads. The Squire's Dilemma. This left the squire at a brutal crossroads. His entire education had prepared him for a single, highly specialized profession that was now dying out. What could he do? He was a man with a very particular set of skills, but the world no longer valued them. He faced several difficult, often unappealing choices. One path was to simply remain a squire for his entire life. He could become a permanent high-ranking servant and man-at-arms to his lord, a trusted retainer who would never achieve the noble status he craved. He would be a gentleman, but never a sir. Another path was to abandon the chivalric world altogether. Some squires, particularly those from lesser noble families, might use their administrative skills to become clerks, merchants, or managers of estates. They traded the dream of a sword for the reality of a ledger book. But for many whose only true skill was violence, there was only one real option left. If they could not be a noble warrior, they would become a professional one. Part 4. The lost generation becomes the mercenary generation. This is the great tragic irony of the story. The generation of squires who could not become knights became the very men who replaced them. Unable to find a place in the traditional feudal system, thousands of these highly trained, skilled, and now disillusioned young men sold their swords to the highest bidder. They became the captains, the sergeants, and the elite soldiers in the great mercenary companies that were now dominating European warfare. Their deep knowledge of combat tactics and horsemanship made them incredibly valuable. They were the perfect military professionals, But they fought without the old code. They had been trained for a world of honor and chivalry, but that world had rejected them. So they embraced the new world of ruthless, cash-driven warfare. They were a generation defined by a broken promise. They were supposed to be the next wave of noble knights, the protectors of Christendom. Instead, they became the hardened, cynical soldiers of fortune, who fought for coin and in doing so, hammered the final nails into the coffin of the very system they were raised to uphold. The children of the old world became the architects of the new one. So the story of the Forgotten Squire is the final human tragedy in the decline of knighthood. It is a story of a generation caught between two worlds, trained for a past that no longer existed, and forced to adapt to a future they did not choose. They are the footnotes of history, the men who almost were. Their personal disappointment and their collective adaptation represent the very moment that the medieval world gave way to the modern one. They are a powerful reminder that when great historical systems collapse, it is the next generation that must live amongst the ruins and build something new. This story of the forgotten and the overlooked is a crucial part of understanding the true cost of historical change. If you were moved by their plight, show your support by hitting the like button. And to see what legacy this entire complex era left behind, subscribe to The Knight's Journey and ring the notification bell for our final special bonus episode. Because history is not just about the kings who make decisions. It's also about the young men who have to live with the consequences.